My name is Steve Batiz, and I was kind of raised all over the country. My dad was in the army, so I'm an army brat. Graduated high school in South Carolina, moved to Atlanta. When I was in Atlanta, my brother had joined the Navy, and I went and saw Top Gun, and it was all over, bro. I was like, I'm gonna go in there and do this,
I'm gonna be
That's how.
Maverick.
Yeah, no, I actually went to the Art Institute of Atlanta, and um, I went to, when I went to the recruiter, I told him what I wanted to do, and he was like, photographer, that ain't happening. And I was like, well, all right, let's go find out. And I went down there, and they offered me some other, I think OS, operations specialist, and something else. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna get up and walk out of here. And all of a sudden, miraculously, here it comes.
Oh, I found it.
Yeah. Well, years later, when I worked at, I was a recruiter, and I was working with MEPS, and like actually getting people to join the Navy. I realized that they hold those. I'm not going to say a lot of times, but a lot of times they hold those jobs for the people that are going to be like holdouts, and I was one of those holdouts. So I guess I got lucky.
So yeah, they're looking needs of the Navy, and of course,
Yeah.
you walk in and you're like the needs of me, myself. Of course, recruiters they embellish a little sometimes. They got to do what they got to do.
Oh
I
yeah.
know that when I walked in, I actually wanted to be a journalist,
Right.
and so I took the ASVAB and did all that stuff, and then they're like, "Well, we're going to give you a typing test,"
Oh
and
damn.
so I took a typing test. I'm one of those hunt and peck typers even still to this day, um, which is stupid because I took a typing class in high school. I must have been asleep or not paying attention, but
I've never taken a typing class, and I can, if I get on the keyboard right now, and it's just from repetition, from being on, like I sit in front of the computer all day long sometimes, and you just pick it up. I don't know why. I guess, back in the day, to become a journalist, I remember them doing like tests like that, but did it make sense? Did they give typing tests to the yeoman or to the personnel men back then? I don't know. I don't remember
no,
that happening, but you would think,
probably not if they need some yeomen.
yeah, if they need them, they need lots of them. Yeah, you're wide open. You can come in. You ain't even got to score high. But
I mean, I don't know. To this day, I still don't know the level of truth to that because I was told later on by, of course, we interact with journalists as photo mates. Them saying, "Man, they never did that for me. I don't."
oh,
You know,
really?
they acted like, really? They were surprised.
I don't. They were like, "Damn, we need to test this guy because he don't look like he can type." That's probably what it was. I don't. I honestly don't remember them ever. I don't know. I mean, they could have. I don't remember it, but you know, getting
Well,
old, bro.
I
My
mean,
my mind is I'm losing it. So
oh yeah, yeah.
I don't even remember
I'm
what I was thinking about 2 seconds ago half the time.
have I have SS or SVD or
Uh-oh.
SFBD, shit for brains disorder.
Yeah. I was like, don't say VD. I was like,
Really?
we should be talking about that on on here, but anyway.
Well, I mean, sometimes, your plan is one thing, and I feel like you know, maybe God was looking out for me, like, no, you need to be in this photo community and meet all these cool ass people. That'd be better
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, and I get it. I understand, like you don't really understand it when you're I can't even say that, but when you're young and you're going down, it's like very intimidating to go into this, like my son went to join the Navy, right? And I went down, of course, I went to MEPS with him because, I was a recruiter. I used to work at Navy recruiting headquarters in DC as well. And when he went in there, I was sitting out in the room. He went into the classifier, and he comes out and he says, "Oh, I don't know what's going on. They're offering me this and this, and it was like some. they weren't really great options for him. And I said, okay. And I got up and I walked into the classifier's office and they were like, oh, cause I think when I went down there, the recruiter knew that I had worked at CNRC or Navy Recruiting Command. So it was really weird because they were like, oh, this guy, I knew people at Navy Recruiting Command still. I do
Right.
know people there, but it wasn't like I could make a phone call and go, I think a lot of people, even recruiters, think there's like a disconnect because nobody from Recruiting Command is going to call the recruiter and say, hook this guy up. But
Right.
the way they treated me was like really like, like I was, you know, like somebody that was had some kind of power. I had zero power at all. But it was funny because when I walked into the classifier's office, all of a sudden everything changed. They were like calling me sir, and I'm like, nobody ever called me sir in the Navy, but and I was like, yeah, chief, I just kind of explained what I did, and you know, and um, all of a sudden, all these jobs came out of the system that weren't there before, and he got like automatic, promotion to third class, and all this other stuff. So, it was kind of good that I was down there. Otherwise, they would have, they might have gotten him to go into something that he really didn't want to do. And it is based off of, I think that needs of the Navy are going to come first, but and they have to fill these billets. So, they'll throw them out there, and if you bite, cool. If you don't bite, if you push back, then all of a sudden they need to get you in as well, and they have these other billets that they need to fill. So I mean that's basically how it works. So it's a
Yeah, they
little,
might.
it's a those classifiers are also recruiters, so they went through the same sales training and everything else. So they're trying to sell you on these other jobs, but sometimes if you hold out, you could actually get something even better. So
Yeah. I mean, they stick you on delayed entry program or whatever if they have to wait
right.
for it long enough.
Well,
Um,
provided you're not provided you scored high enough to get those jobs, right? I mean, a lot of people want to be a photographer, and we used to see that all the time. People would come into the office, and I would tell them what my job was, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, I want to be a
I want to
photographer.
do
That's
that.
what I want to do." And I'm like, "Bro, you scored a 25 on the test. It ain't happening. It ain't in the cards for you, bro. I mean, we got some bosun mate jobs for you, or some other stuff. Even though the bosun mate rating is a very difficult rating, and a lot of people think it's you can score whatever. That's not the case. You still have to have a decent score, but you know
So, so about how old were you when you made that decision? Like, I mean, you came from a military family, so you weren't completely in the dark like some people might be. But how old were you when you're like, I think I'm.
well, I mean basically the way it kind of went down for me is my dad was in the army for 34 years. He was a sergeant major in the army, and I went to the Art Institute for 2 years, and towards the end of that, I think I was about like 19, almost 20. Um, it was at the time the Art Institute was a 2 year program for commercial photography, and I was like, yeah, look, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And my brother had joined the Navy, and he was telling me, how much he loved it. He was stationed down in Jacksonville. He's having a good time. So I was like, all right, and like God's honest truth, I did watch Top Gun at the time. And it was in 1986, and it was like, uh, I think Top Gun was a propaganda piece, but it got a lot of people to join, and a lot of people joined based off of watching that movie. They thought, this is cool. So, um, that's yeah, 19. That was a long answer to your short question, but
I mean, that I'm sure that was probably out of all the movies that have ever been made. There's probably never been a greater recruiting tool that for the Navy as far as getting people to join up.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
So
now we got CSI, man. Everybody wants to go, be a CSI agent, you know. I mean, not
so
CSI, NCIS, not
right.
CSI. Right.
So where did you go to boot camp, and your brother talked about how great it was. Where you did you ever get there and go, man, I think he lied to me.
Um, well, I went to boot camp in Orlando, Navy World, like Disney World, but and younger sailors, they it's only Great Lakes now, so um, you know, Orlando was very unique because there was a lot of humidity. Um, and we had something there that my son, I asked my son if he had this, and he said no. He's like looked at me like I was, what are you talking about? But we had 1 5 day. Did you go to Orlando?
I did
You remember 1 5 day?
1 5 day. The fifth day on the first week.
First week, fifth day, right? Well, they would come into your berthing, and you had 80 people in there, and they would just tear it to shreds, and they would work you out, while they're doing it. You're like, and they wouldn't stop until the temperature in the compartment went up 10 degrees. So they would throw people's racks or their mattresses out the door, and they just went. It looked like a tornado went off. And then when they got done, they said you got, I don't remember, it was like 30 minutes to get this back into shape or something like that. So now we're already, beat to hell, and then they're coming back, and then we have to keep going until we get it back in order, and then they come in and give you an inspection. And like in boot camp, one of the things that I it seemed like, I know it wasn't this way, but it seemed like half of our training was how to fold our shit. You know what I mean? We had to
Oh
fold our
yeah.
clothes a certain way. You had to have you know, and they just ripped your compartment apart. Everybody's name was stenciled on all their gear, on all their clothes, on all their towels, and you had to find which one was yours. Fold it back right, get it back into shape, into your locker. There's little lockers, and if you didn't have that, then they would come back in. So it was kind of like like hell day, but apparently they don't have that anymore. It's funny because my son looked at me, he goes, it seems like your boot camp was a lot harder than mine. I'm like, yeah, bro, you had 2 weeks. He went during COVID. He had 2 weeks of quarantine where he was in a hotel in a room by himself. They would bring him food because he couldn't leave the room. And then after those 2 weeks of quarantine, he got 6 weeks of boot camp. And during boot camp, they didn't even give him the gas, the tear gas, the CS
Oh
gas.
yeah.
Didn't even do that because quarantine, or because of COVID. I'm like, yeah, you
You got
know,
off easy.
it was a little different. Yes. And I heard now I heard they boot camp's 13 weeks now. So, you
I
know,
think it was 10 for us, right? I think
no,
10,
eight weeks.
8,
8 weeks, but then you have processing days, and
right?
yeah, sometimes. And then if you were like, I was in over Christmas, so they would shut down boot camp, and I was like, what? That was like a shock. I think it was shut down boot camp during Christmas. Well, don't shut it down. We got to be here anyway. Let's keep this going, because I got 8 weeks. Let's go.
I gotta get
But
out of here.
yeah, you're trying to stay like 10, 11 weeks. But yeah, around Thanksgiving and Christmas, man, I went in October 28th, and I I'm trying to remember when I got. I don't remember. But I went to A school, like, right. I think in February, like at the beginning of February. So it was fun. I mean, yeah, it was a shock, because you know it's going to happen, but you don't really know what's going to happen until somebody's all up in your face, yelling at you, and you're like, oh damn, this is really how I can't say anything either. I'm like, yo, man, your breast's kicking. So, you know what I mean? It was good. It was a good time though. I mean, you look back at things like that, later on in life, and you understand it builds character, and it builds a bond, you know, um, with the people that you were there with. You know what I mean? Um, it's you don't want to do it when it's happening. You're like, oh God, just like SEER school. Did not want to do it when it was happening. Didn't want to go in the first place, but they made me go. I went. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun. I got my ass beat, but at the end of the day, it was looking back on it, it was a good experience. Would I want to do it again? No. I could probably do boot camp again, but I don't know about SEER school, man. A little different.
At my age, I don't think I'd want to do either of them.
I mean, I don't want to do it, but could I do it? I mean, why not? I don't know about the food, bro. The food there was it's the only place I've ever been where they like screwed up toast. Seriously, toast. I was like, damn, what the hell? Like, I don't even know what they meant. It tastes like they put some chemicals on it or something like that, but it was bad.
I just remember, they had obviously rules for everything, but you know, sitting down there, the last person would sit at the table, and then someone was on their work week or whatever would come by and say, "Shipmates at this table, you have 5 minutes and 5 minutes only to enjoy your fine Navy chow. Begin."
Yep.
And just shoveling it in.
Yeah. 5 minutes is a long time when you think about it, but yeah, it kind of after a while, people that go, they think, wow, you don't have to eat it. Yeah, you do, because if you don't eat it, you'll pay for it later. You know what I mean? Like even
Yeah,
things that you don't like, you get to, you get to liking it. Um, I
kind of
don't
need
think
those calories.
I don't know. And I did eat the toast again after that, but it was, you know,
Still jacked up.
I mean, yeah, you got a bunch of kids, from all over the country. They're on their service week and they're back in the back cooking with some guidance from some, actual, Navy MSs at the time. And you're bound to have issues, man. Like nobody wants to be in there cooking, but somebody's got to do it. And you know what? We were their victims. You know what I mean? If you got to,
Yeah, I think in hindsight, like now, you would probably say, "No, I'll pass."
maybe. Yeah, I don't know,
So
man. I go just to get into shape. You know what I mean? But
I wouldn't mind that part of it. Um,
exactly.
it'd be rough as hell to begin with,
Well, because you're
but
forced to do it. You know what I mean?
right,
I was
right.
I was talking to I was talking to Spike Call the other day, and I said, one of the things that I really appreciated now about the Navy, and when I was in, man, I was a little I'm gonna say like I was a little rebellious, not necessarily, and I know there's gonna be people out there watching this go, hell yeah, you were like really rebellious, but I always tried to apply logic, and like if someone told me to do something, I'd be like, I would always think about it before I did it, and sometimes that got me into trouble, but one of the things that I was telling Spike that you know in the civilian sector you have the option not to learn something or take on a challenge like in your job I started shooting and this is going to seem kind of funny because I was a photographer in the Navy, but I started shooting like doing YouTube videos for my business, and I didn't know how to do it. I remember learning how to edit when I was in the Navy at, like on the Avid. I was actually Avid certified, believe it or not. Um, and I'd forgotten all that stuff, but I like ever since I got out of the Navy, if I wanted to do something and I didn't know how to do it, I would just dig in and learn how to do it until I figured it out. And if I ran
You were the
into it,
same way in the Navy. You were the
well,
same way. I
yeah,
mean,
well, exactly. But in the Navy, that's the thing. You don't have the option to not learn how to do it. You get put into a
Right.
job as a photographer, and a lot of people out there. I was a a photographer before I went to the Navy. I was a photographer. I was into it since I was 16. But a lot of people were like, "Oh, that sounds like a cool job. Yeah, I'll take that." Never picked up a camera before, but guess what? You had to learn. You had no option to say I'm not going to do that. You better learn it. You better get it done. You better figure it out. And I remember being told that, you know, so many times on so many different things. You better figure it out. You need to figure it out. And you figured it out. In the civilian sector, you have an option not to figure it out. Or you can like almost be, lazy about it. And that's I mean, that's definitely one of the things that I appreciate about being in the Navy is that, it taught me that, you know, figure it out, you know?
I mean, my recollection, of first getting to know you at Combat Camera, you were back there in the Fojo shop, and I was over in the post production area. But I mean, at that time, the digital thing was really starting to take hold. We had those crappy DCS cameras with the giant bricks on them, and but nobody wanted that because the quality was crap. So
Right.
everybody was still shooting their film. Then they would scan their film, and then of course, manipulate it in Photoshop. But I mean, at that time, I'm, and even now, years later, I don't know anyone who was ever more proficient with Photoshop than you were. What was your motivation on that? You just want
Um,
to know it?
I think I've always been, creative. I've always, had a creative side to me, but I also have been, competitive too. So I always wanted to be I always wanted to know, right? It goes back to what I was saying earlier. If I didn't know how to do something, I would sit there in front of that computer until I figured it out. I actually was on when we were um, at Sugi when we were on debt. I don't know if you remember, but they sent me out to the Blue Ridge. They called me up. I had food poisoning from the base club. I remember I ate some chicken over there, and I was sick. And then Chief Dale comes in and says, "Oh, we need you to get your stuff. You're going out to the Blue Ridge." And I'm like, "The hell? I don't feel good. I'm sick. And well, too bad you got to go." So I when I was out there, they flew me out there. When I was out there, I went to go show them how to work their Photoshop or hook up their electronic imaging center for them because for some reason they couldn't figure it out. Um, and
And that was the flagship too. So it
yeah,
was going.
yeah, I had to go. And but back then they would like daisy chain all these devices together, and if something in the middle wasn't working, the rest of the, it was a mess. So, but while I was out there, I started doing like creative compositions with Photoshop, and I was like, oh, this is cool, And I remember I did a picture of an F-14 coming straight up out of the water with a big splash underneath it. I don't know if you remember that, but and then I did one with a F-18 flying in space and stuff. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, what it can do. And then over the years, Adobe kept adding like different things to the software. And I kept, expanding on it, like when the layers first came out. And then, so I kept expanding on, my knowledge of Photoshop. And now it's like my right hand, my left hand. I just know it. But even today, I don't fully and I've been working with Photoshop since version 1, and the technology just advances so quick and so fast, and like there's so many things about it that I still don't understand, but I can get in there if I wanted to figure it out. Again, I'll figure it out. Um, it's I've always been the a type of person that like I've always want to learn things. Always want to, what, like I try to figure out what the hell, what's going on in the world, like what are these people trying to do? Why, it's just something in me that, something I do.
So they sent you to. I mean, we all get that chance to go to the Redneck Riviera down there to Pensacola. Um, what was that experience like after boot camp, and then obviously that gets you ready for your first assignment?
Um, yeah, like Pensacola was, it was for me, like, again, I just got finished with 2 years of photos, like professional photography school. So I was, honestly, when I was there, I was a little bit bored at first. Um, I I knew, like, I already knew everything. I didn't even have to study. You know what I mean? It was very elementary what they were teaching to me. To somebody, again, I get it. There's people that they hand them a job and they've never done it before. They go in there and yeah, it's a little bit challenging because it's like all new, and I understand why the curriculum was set up that way, and it was actually set up really good to take people through the steps. But I like, I'd been there. I'd been in that field for years already, so I already kind of knew what was going on. So it was a lot of that was, um, it was almost like going to college, man. We partied and you know like,
Hang out at the Seville Quarter.
oh my God, yeah. Well, we had one of my buddies, Pete Watson, man, great dude. If you get a chance to talk to Pete, he's a good guy. But yeah, one day he didn't come home till 6 in the morning, and tried to get in his rack to go back to sleep. I'm like, bro, we got to go. We got muster. It's
There's
like
no rack time today.
at like 7:30. So we had to like get him out of his rack, get him in the shower, march him to school, and he was like all out of step and just, I mean, you could smell him, and he had a good time. And when we got to school, um, it was Senior Chief Mitchell at the time. They gave us an inspection, and I remember standing next to Pete, and Senior Chief came, he's walking up, he's like, hey, how you doing, talking to everybody, right? And he gets up to Pete, and he goes, how you doing, Airman Watson? And Pete drops his head. He goes, I'm doing fine, Senior Chief. He goes, you don't have to drop your head. You can look at me. And he looks up at him. I'm standing right next to him, and he goes, I'm doing fine, Senior Chief. And I know. And if Master Chief Mitchell watches this, I'd love to know what his response, if he actually remembers this even. But he just looked at me, goes, all right, sounds good. And then came to me, and I was like, damn, this is a cool. I mean, he's Master Chief Mitchell's a cool guy. He's just a really good person in general. Um, but that was the point when I knew, you know, we're good. But I don't know. I don't know if, I have a feeling that if something like that were to happen today, it would be, a whole different reaction. I don't know, but yeah, we had a good time, you know.
So once you wrapped up there, then where were you off to? Your first
So,
assignment?
even like back then, and I think some schools still do it today, but if you graduate first in your class, you get your set of orders. So combat camera came up, and I was like, oh, what is this? And everybody kept saying, oh, take it, take it, take it. And that's the one you want. So that's my first duty station, was combat camera in Norfolk, um, which was, it was a whole different experience too. But um,
Mine too. I was the first airman and first person out of A school in about a decade to go to Combat Camera Pacific.
yeah,
And
we
then
had we had quite a few come straight out of A school when I was there. I know Chad Van, April Hatton. Um, I'm trying to think. There were quite a few over there. So
ironically, I checked in as the junior person, and I checked out as a junior person.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody junior to you when you left?
No,
Oh,
no. Um,
interesting. I didn't know that.
Diano made third class before I did. Jessica made third class before I did. So yeah,
Yeah,
I was the junior the whole time.
yeah. Oh, shipmate, my shipmate, Jeff Viano
Yes, sir.
up in Idaho, living the
Yeah,
life.
he and I did first lieutenant together, working for Chief Hitchcock at Combat Camera. Doing stuff
Right.
around the building. Um,
I remember
he
that.
kept us busy doing some bullshit most of the time.
Yeah, it got to be done, bro. It's got to be done. And that's the thing too. You coming into the Navy, you're like, man, why do I got to do this? But then you look and you think, well, who else is going to do it? You know, the thing about the Navy that is different than a lot of the other branches is that we have to do everything. And as a photographer in the Navy, I mean, I we would go to. I remember I went on a job with it was three of us. There was myself. Who else was on there? Chief Bean and Guzman, John
Gooter,
and Gooter. I was going to say that, but and we showed up to in Roswell, New Mexico, and I think the Air Force had like 20 people, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? They bought a refrigerator so that they could store their Kodachrome in the refrigerator. Meanwhile, we're out there shooting Ektachrome. No, we're shooting negative um, color negative film, and we were taking it down because they didn't have anywhere to process their Kodachrome because you got to send it to Kodak. So
right?
we were taking the negative film down to Walmart and processing it at Walmart, and then bringing it back and scanning it. And we were running circles around those guys because they handicap themselves, with all this.
By bringing the chrome film,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they would ask us. I mean, we were submitting images, every day, and they were going to wait till they. And not only that, but it's hot in Roswell, New Mexico, and you got to keep that Kodachrome. You got to keep it in a refrigerator. It's going to go bad, and they lit. It's just it was a waste. Nowadays, I mean, with digital, it's you just go in, shoot your stuff, and just transfer it to the computer, and boom, 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 you're done. It's a lot quicker. But back then, man, you know, we had to. I remember like years before that when I was down in Panama, we had to bring a what they call it MR sat, little satellite in a
yeah, the suitcase,
suitcase, and it had a scanner in it, so we would have to get the film processed. Then we'd sit there and with the satellite dish and like aim it around until we got a signal, and oh, good signal. Then you'd send it back to DC or wherever you were sending it. It's a lot different. It's a lot different now. I'm sure they have their challenges now that we didn't have, but seemed like more work. But as far as that, as far as the Navy and why, as a recruiter, this actually helped me out to recruit people because if you're gonna join the Air Force as a jet mechanic, you have contractors that can drop in and take over if you know if you're if you don't know what's going on. But in the Navy, you got to do it yourself. They're not flying a contractor out to the middle of the Indian Ocean to help you fix that plane. So you have to learn that,
right?
so I feel like, that was for us, that was a huge benefit to, because they taught us more. They wanted us to know everything, right? You know,
And cross training, you know,
yeah, cross train on everything. You have to know, I mean, we're down there, as a combat photographer down in Panama, and I'm carrying everything the Marines are carrying, M16, handgun, knives, the whole nine yards, and the Marines are going out with just that, and then we have to carry, you know, film. enough film at the time, um, lenses, two camera bodies, so it was a lot of extra weight. It's probably why my back is all jacked up and my knees are all jacked up now, from all that weight. But, it was definitely an experience. It was, looking back on it, it was great, man. Being down in Panama, I was like, "Ah, I hate it down here. It was hot. It's like you just want to go home. You want to go be able to go to Burger King, you know, whatever." But I remember that time we found the KFC in Japan.
Oh yeah.
You remember that? Oh, you got the picture. Oh Lord, here we go. Joe and Colonel Sanders. There we go. See, I took that. Yep. Colonel Sanders was never the same after that. Yep. That's a good
Beady-eyed son of a bitch.
one.
That beady-eyed
Yep.
bastard. We
That's
had
some
some
good
good
chicken
times,
though.
that's for sure.
The Japan KFC was bomb though, like better than we had over here. But
It seemed like it was. It seemed like it was, that's for
oh
sure.
sure, it's because
And then,
we
of
hadn't had
course,
it in a long time.
taking that road trip to the Air Force base there, so you could get some Popeyes.
Yep, exactly.
Those Air Force people, man, they always had the good stuff.
They do. They for sure. If you want it, I don't even like to say this, but if you want it, a lot easier than we had it, like going to Air Force. But it's a lot harder. The other thing too about the Air Force is it's a lot harder to advance in the Air Force, and their qualifications are higher to get in. People love it. They don't want to get out. You know, that's the issue. That's the flip side of it. But
It's too easy. Why would you want to go, right?
yeah, sure. Sign me back up. I'll go back in the Air Force. Let's go.
So after that first tour at Combat Camera Atlantic, was it off to recruiting command after that, or?
Was it? Yeah, it was. I was actually on recruiting duty after that. Um, and again, I just wanted to go. I thought it was going to be, a good shore duty. Looking back on it, for like now, I'm a real estate broker, so I look back on that, and it did help me a bit because it taught me, the sales cycle and how to like communicate with people. Um, but being on goal, like you have to get three people in this month, and if you don't get those three people in, you got to go see the CO, and it's like, damn, you mean it's almost like you getting captain's mast for not making goal every month.
Uh-huh.
So it was very stressful, but you had to do it, you had to get it done. So again, it's there is no option to fail. You have to do it, you have to make it happen. So
So any clue or any idea how many people you actually might have recruited in
oh
your
god.
years at?
um I have no idea, man.
No.
You know, yeah,
So
quite a few. You know, I did get like meritoriously promoted on recruiting duty to first class. So, you know, I thought I did okay. There's people out there that were more suited to it than I was, and I always tried to be, upfront and honest with people, and sometimes on recruiting duty, that's it seemed like um some of the people that weren't being honest um um did better. And I don't mean to say, I don't mean to say they were lying, but I mean, we always used to say, how an army recruiter's lying because their lips are moving, but I still communicate with a couple of people I actually put in the Navy, um so it's kind of cool, you know.
so after that time frame, was it off to Combat Camera Pacific after that?
S- So then I went to when I went to when I was on recruiting duty, I actually interviewed with the Blue Angels. The photographer there was going to, be transferring out, and I, they pretty much told me that I had the job, and then they said, "Oh, this guy just extended for another year," and I was like, "I'm not staying on recruiting duty for another year." And my that then they offered me combat camera in San Diego, and I was like, "All right." So that's how I wound up in San Diego. Blue Angels would have been cool, but if I'd have done that, I would have never met you, Joe. So things always work out for a reason, bro.
Absolutely, brother. You're one of the dearest people in my life. I'm
Yep,
not
for
just saying
sure,
that.
for sure, for sure.
Um, so I'd already been there when you arrived, and just like any position other than shore duty in the Navy, at some point you're going to deploy. So we headed off over to Japan. Um, what was your experience of Japan like?
You already know the answer to this. I'm just kidding. Um, Japan was cool. I loved it over there. I mean, I'd never been to Asia before, and when we got over there, it was, it was a good time. I thought, there was a couple of tense moments, but other than that, we got to travel around some and went to Thailand for 45 days. Um,
It just popped in my head when you were talking about tense moments.
yeah,
I think
I
it
was
was
like,
that stop the van.
stop the van, chief, stop the van. He's like, what? Oh, yeah, pissed me
You were
off,
like,
but
oh, you walked to work that morning.
he knows
You
what's up. He knows what's up. He knows what's up. I mean, it's all good now. I mean, it's, when I was younger, I had a little bit of a, shorter fuse than I do now, and I let things get to me. Where now it'd be like, I mean, I'm a, like, again, I'm a real estate broker, and right, you just cannot let things get to you. People that you've been working with for, 2 months, they go buy a house with somebody else. A lot of people would be like, what the hell? They get pissed, and a lot of people do, but it's just, if it is what it is, nothing you can do about it. And you just chalk it up to, maybe I didn't do something. Maybe I, let them down somewhere, whatever. But back then, man, oh yeah, it got tense for sure.
So we spent a little time in Thailand. That was one of my better memories of that deployment. Of course, I think I worked like a dog, at least for a good month and a half while we were there. At least a month.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever worked harder, to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
a lot of that came from watching you, whether you know or realize that or not.
Nope.
You know,
And no, all I know is when we left, we both cried. We were in the back of the bus crying, sucking our thumbs. Thailand was a good time. We had fun. It was a good deployment for sure. You know.
that's certainly one of the reasons why most people join the Navy, because they want to go somewhere, they want to see something. And I
Yeah.
mean, I was always volunteering. I'll go anywhere, anytime. And sometimes I was a little disappointed when senior people to me would, they would get that assignment as opposed to me. But occasionally, they might not want to go anywhere, and they'd be like, "Yeah, go ahead, Petty Officer Lynch."
It will throw you a bone.
Yeah.
I think, like, I was at a veterans ceremony last weekend, and there was an army, first lieutenant, sorry, first lieutenant, who's, he was a what we call a Mustang for the army, so he was enlisted first. And he got up there and he says, I don't know about you Navy guys, like we got to travel everywhere, and he got to go, to some army base, and you know they didn't really travel like we did. So, like, if you want to travel, there is no better branch of the service. I mean, I would say, the Marines probably travel just as much, but mm, no, I can't do it. It's too much.
So obviously that was a great tour at Combat Camera. So you did one deployment while you were there?
Oh, at combat camera?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
you mean
dead,
to Atsu?
dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, one
I
six
ended up
month.
I ended up doing two. Um, it wasn't the same without you. I got to be honest. The second time around, it was still cool, but wasn't as cool. I missed my brother.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
I
from
missed you while you
there,
were gone.
you were on to DC. Which matter of fact, I was in DC to get an award for runner up for videographer of the year, and got to spend a little time with you there. At that time, you were working at the recruiting command, correct?
Yep. So I went to recruiting headquarters where I was, um, from what I'm told, I was the first multimedia developer for the Navy, and they had this computer system that, um, I want to say they spent like $50,000 to, so I could develop like applications, like multimedia applications. And then from there, I was like, I started seeing how much the money they were spending on different, programs. And I got out of the Navy. I was like, I'm gonna go out there and start my own company. We when I got out, one of our clients was the Navy, or Navy Recruiting Command. And we built Navy.com, and we built a Spanish language site called elnavy.com, for like the influencer market. Um, and it was good, man. It was, they treated us really good. Um, and I already, being a recruiter, um, I knew other recruiters, and then we developed a chat program for, we were the first chat program for any branch of the military, and we launched it on Navy.com. And I had recruiters in my office, and we were getting like, every week we get thousands of applicants coming through asking, questions. And I had recruiters in there, former Navy recruiters, and they're answering questions for them and passing on, leads to Navy recruiting headquarters. So, it was good. I mean, we stood that up, and after 9/11 happened, the Navy just pulled funding for a lot of those programs. And, it became a struggle. And, we eventually closed down. Um, and then I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because, owning that business, you made pretty good money. And then I got into real estate. My mother was a realtor. So, the rest is history, man. I just, and now I own a real estate brokerage, or a franchise of Next Home. And, I'm in Seal Beach, California. So, it's still, I love it because I like working with people or dealing with people. And everything changes. Every day it's something different. You get to meet this person, or talk to these people, or help, these people, find how, when they listen to you, it's fun. When they don't listen to you, which, is half the time they don't listen, like we got Google now, they don't, people go to the doctor for a second opinion because they already figured it out on Google,
Right.
so you have people telling you, oh, the market's going to crash. And it's like, okay, it's not crashing
Just like we
anymore.
were, just like
Like
we
we
were
were talking,
talking about before we
we
started
got on the
recording.
call.
Like,
Yep.
they're reading
Okay.
one thing, reality's over here. They're
Yeah.
not matching.
I mean, the internet, or Google, is for me, it's we built a lot of websites with my company. And we built, the Metrolink trains, which is the LA, metro train system. Well, there's Metro and there's Metrolink. So Metrolink actually goes out to, down to San Diego, goes up north, goes out to Riverside. So we built their website. We built, sites for the Smithsonian, the Library of Congress. Um, so I was very, into the internet, like in its early years. And, one of the things that I will say about Google is it's awesome what it can do, but it's also not so awesome at what it can do, because people, it doesn't matter what your job is. There's going to be somebody out there that read about it on Google or on the internet, and they're going to tell you, that you're wrong. And you're like, okay, and just like, anything you Google on anything you can Google, you're going to find um, you're going to find both sides of that issue, right? And people have a confirmation bias, so they're going to believe what they already believe. So it can be a bad thing, but you know we'll see where it takes us as a society. Let's just put it that way. Leave it at that because this could be a long conversation. I got shit to do.
So, a lot of people join the service, whichever service it is, and if you learn how to be an infantryman, that might not serve you too well in the civilian world unless you become a cop or something else like that. But um, I mean, it's very fair to say that probably no one or not many people um, used what they learned in the Navy to help them afterwards, probably as much as you might have.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, my son's in the Navy, and I always tell him, I tell him to do what I didn't do. Volunteer for everything. If somebody wants, ask you to come, they need somebody to clean the shitters, raise your hand, be the first one to do it. And he's actually doing really good, so far. He's advancing really quick. He's
What rate is he?
ET. Um, but he actually listens. You give him advice, he listens. I never, you couldn't tell me shit, and I know Donna Walker's probably gonna see this and go, yup, I couldn't tell him shit. A lot of people couldn't tell me shit. And you look back on it, I gotta apologize for those, people that I gave a hard time to, um, especially her. She's a great person, but when I was in the Navy, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but you know, I have used, as far as like my business now. I mean, obviously the photography part has helped me out with, like lead generation for my business. I do, like graphics. If people, if I need to do graphics or anything, not a problem. I can knock it out in no time. Where a lot of people got to go, use Canva, and they can't even figure out Canva, and it just made things a lot easier. And again, you don't realize what skills you're going to need until you need them. And I'm glad I went through what I went through. Even SEER school teaches you a lot about yourself. You know,
Yeah, teaches you how to get the shit slapped out of you.
somebody beat your ass, you learn to shut your mouth, or you're gonna get some more. You want some more of this beating, or But it was interesting. You know, Actually, probably one of the best schools I'd ever been to. Believe it or not.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say in a lot of ways. I went to, of course, to Syria, and I did a desert survival training
yep.
uh, in El Centro. Had a SEAL as my compass partner. Um, you know,
Right.
definitely was good to lean on him and his compass reading and his ability to navigate.
Yep.
Uh,
Because I
but I
know I'd be
mean,
lost her in hell if oh damn, I got a compass somewhere around here, but
on my phone, I think.
yeah, I got one on my watch too. On my Yep, that's true for sure.
um, well, if you had to do it all over again, would you?
Oh yeah, man. If they take me back now, I'd go shit. You know, like I didn't retire, and like, and I told my son that I told him the other day. He's like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna get out." I go, "Look, d- if if I could go back and stay 20 years, I'd already be retired, man. I'd be
Same.
retired. And you know what? If I sold houses, if I didn't, I could still be okay. I could survive. Now it's like, like if I could talk to my younger self, I'd be like, stay in, just finish it out. Actually, you know, um, um, listen to people, take advice, and it's as you get older, and wiser, hopefully, you start to see these things. I just wish that someone would actually, watch this video that's actually still young and in the Navy and listen, because I'm not telling you, I mean, I got out and I made, the first year I got out of the Navy, I made more money than I made the entire time I was in the Navy, like all of it, the first year. Um, but I wish like hell I would have stayed in, because it's not, it's, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's almost easier, you know?
Yeah, I
and
regret
and
not
and,
doing
and
20.
I don't want anybody to take it the wrong way. I know, I mean, being in the military is not an easy life, but being a civilian, trying to get up every morning, figuring out where your next meal's coming from, and I know it's different for people that work for corporations, and but even now, even then, nowadays, a lot of those corporations, they're not secure in their job. The military, you have a secure job as long as you aren't a screw up. You know,
Right,
if
right.
you know your job and you know your shit, you'll do okay.
Well, anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to say?
That's it, man. I mean, I appreciate you doing this, and if you need some other people, I got some other people for you.
Cool. I'm wanting to
Good
talk
time,
to.
man.
I did one yesterday, doing one today, do another one on Monday, but I'm hoping to, get a bunch of these in the can. And if for no other reason, maybe these people can let their family see it, get to know them in a way that they probably never even knew about them.
Yep,
Uh, and of course, it's always good to talk to your shipmates.
for sure.
Sometimes at the time, they don't mean to you near what they end up meaning to you later on.
Oh, absolutely. That's a fact. And that's like, if there's one thing about the Navy that, other than what I've already talked about, is that you literally have friends that are going to be with you for the rest of your life, people that you can call and talk to, and they've been there, done that with you. You know what I mean? Um, I talked to a few of them yesterday. I was driving up to Simi Valley. It's about an hour and a half north of me. And I just got on the phone. I was like, all right, let me call this guy. Let me call this guy. And they're like, what's up? We talk about old times and just friggin' laugh our asses off. Like, one of the stories was, we had an old grumpy Master Chief. I'm not going to mention his name because he's no longer with us. But anybody that was at Combat Camera in Norfolk in the late 80s, early 90s, and knows who I'm talking about. But he was always like grumpy, just yelling at everybody. And we had heard, we were going through, like, we had, gone through combat training. We knew that, the radio operator was the first one to get shot, in combat, because they want to take out communications. So they stuck a big old twig in his helmet, like, so he looked like the radio operator.
Look like an antenna.
Looked like an antenna, right? And we were just cracking up, man. It was like, I mean, that really happened, and we were just laughing our asses off about it. But you know, it was a good time, and I really appreciate all the friends that I made, and for life. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really know a lot of other civilian industries that have that kind of bond, and that's if there's nothing else, that was worth it right there, by itself. So
Well, I treasure you. I love you, brother.
you too, love you too, man. Now you
And
got it
thank
on
you for doing
video.
this. Yeah, and thanks for not bringing up the caddy.
Oh, no, yeah, we cannot do that. But anyway, all right, man.
Love you. Thanks for doing this.
All right, bro.